What if everything you've seen on The Simpsons over the past 30 years never actually happened? What if every joke, every wild adventure, every absurd moment was nothing more than a comforting lie crafted by the mind of a man on the edge of death? This is the darkest theory ever made about The Simpsons, and possibly the most convincing one too. According to fans around the world, Homer Simpson suffered a serious accident in 1993, a near-fatal incident that left him in a deep coma. But instead of waking up, he slipped into a world built by his own subconscious, a universe where time stands still, where the kids never grow up, where logic breaks down, and where everything keeps getting more insane, surreal, and dreamlike. If you thought The Simpsons was just jokes and random nonsense, get ready, because what comes next is a deep, dark dive into the mind of Homer Simpson. The accident. Homer falls into a coma. Season 4, Episode 3, Homer the Heretic. It all starts in one of the most iconic and perhaps most tragic episodes of the series. In this episode, Homer decides to stop going to church. In the middle of a harsh Springfield winter, he refuses to attend Sunday service with his family. While they brave the cold, Homer spends the day at home, lounging in his pajamas, eating junk food, dancing in front of the fireplace until everything spirals out of control. The house catches fire. The flames spread quickly. The heat engulfs the room as Homer, oblivious to the danger, nearly becomes a victim of his own laziness. That's when Flanders shows up like a guardian angel and pulls Homer from the flames. But what if he didn't? What if the scene where we see Homer being rescued was nothing more than a final hallucination, his brain's last flicker of hope before total collapse? That's exactly what this theory proposes, that during that fire, Homer suffered severe brain damage, fell into a coma, and never woke up. In other words, everything that happens after that moment isn't real. It's just a mental simulation, a delusional dream loop playing in the subconscious of a dying man. Season 4 would have been the last point of contact with reality. From that moment on, we're seeing Homer's mind trying to recreate the world as he wants it to be. A bizarre blend of fading memories, repressed desires, and surreal fantasies. And once you see it through that lens, everything changes. That fire wasn't just a slapstick gag, it was the end of Homer's conscious life and the beginning of a quiet nightmare, disguised as comedy. The shift in the show's tone. For those who grew up watching The Simpsons from the very beginning, there's a clear divide, an invisible line separating what the show used to be from what it eventually became. Before 1993, The Simpsons was different, very different. The show had heart, the stories were simpler, more grounded, more human. Episodes dealt with unemployment, marriage troubles, childhood insecurities, school struggles, and workplace injustice. Yes, it was funny, but it still had one foot firmly planted in reality. Springfield was absurd, sure, but it still followed some rules. And Homer, for all his clumsiness, was a father who loved his family, a man who tried even if he always failed. But then something changes, drastically. After the accident in Homer the Heretic, the world starts to unravel. The plots become increasingly surreal.
Great meeting, though.
Yes, that's right. Everyone laugh at the rag.
Homer is no longer just a bumbling dad. He becomes practically indestructible. Bart stops being a mischievous kid and morphs into a force of pure chaos. Lisa, once the moral compass of the family, turns into a symbol of inconsistency and confused ethics. And Marge becomes a narrative tool, bent and reshaped into whatever role the writers need, no matter how detached from reality. Even the town changes. Springfield starts acting like a living, malfunctioning organism. Places vanish, reappear, shift location. Citizens contradict themselves. The laws of physics no longer apply. Time freezes. The children never age. The seasons never change. Nothing moves forward. Then come the plots, time travel, clones, multiple versions of characters. Homer meets celebrities literally every week. One episode he's an astronaut, another he turns into a 3D model. In others, he talks to death. The show turns into a colorful nightmare, a world stripped of logic and filled with constant delirium. And when you connect all of that to the coma theory, it starts to make a terrifying kind of sense. If all of this is happening inside Homer's damaged mind, of course it would be chaotic, incoherent, unhinged. Because brains in comas don't don't follow narrative structure. They blend everything: past, future, fantasy, pain, distorted memories, repressed desires. Today's Springfield is that blend, a setting of pure delusion, a landscape where Homer's sanity dissolves into color, noise, nonsense, and a deep, silent void. It's as if we're watching a brain slowly die, episode by episode. The chronological inconsistencies. There's something deeply unsettling about realizing that time has completely stopped in Springfield. More than 30 seasons have gone by. The real world has changed. We've changed. And yet, Bart Simpson is still 10. Lisa is still 8. Maggie is still a silent baby. Out here, we've lived through social media, foldable smartphones, pandemics, wars. But inside the show, the family is stuck in the same day it all began, as if frozen in time. But this isn't just a creative choice. According to the Coma theory, this is a symptom. Homer is trapped in a reality where time no longer exists, or more accurately, where his mind can no longer perceive it. When the human brain suffers a traumatic injury, it sometimes tries to reconstruct reality with whatever pieces it has left. And often it fails. That's why in Homer's world, nothing moves forward. No one ages. Everyone wears the same clothes. Life lessons repeat endlessly. The cycle never changes. It never changes. Celebrities appear, but they're always in their prime, even if in the real world they've aged or passed away. Technology exists, but in strange, inconsistent ways, like Homer once overheard the word tablet before his accident, and now his mind tries to recreate it without fully understanding how it works. Everything feels like a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of normalcy, but the longer time passes out here, the more the simulation in there begins to fail, and that's when the episodes start to break down, becoming more disconnected, more chaotic, more empty, as if Homer's brain is running out of energy, tired of keeping the illusion alive. Springfield as a fragmented mind. Now stop and think. What does the dream of someone in a coma really look like? It's not a stable world. It's not a place governed by logic. It's a chaotic tangle of memories, fears, desires, and distortions. And that's exactly what Springfield has become. The town that once had structure is now a surreal maze of contradictions. In one episode, Mo is a depressed and miserable man. In another, he's rich, happy.
So yous all like me? Even you, Maestro?
Millhouse.
Yeah, I knew it was something stupid.
With a glamorous past, Ned Flanders, once a charming neighbor, becomes a cruel fanatic, and Homer himself shifts between loving father, empathy-less sociopath, and pure nonsense. Nothing stays the same. Everything morphs. Even the places begin to evaporate. A bar appears in one episode, disappears in the next. A house has 2 floors, then suddenly only 1. The hospital rotates doctors with no explanation and no consistency. Teachers vanish from the school without a trace. Street names change. Buildings rearrange. Everything pulses like a badly stitched dream. And within the mind of an unconscious man, that makes perfect sense. Because in this theory, Springfield isn't a city at all. It's a mental constructo. The last fragile simulation Homer's brain can hold on to. A dreamscape where he tries to preserve everything he loves. His children, his wife, his home, his friends. Even as it all slowly collapses from within. And like any mind on the brink of collapse, the glitches begin to show. Loops repeat. Stories contradict themselves. Logic is discarded. And the city becomes a shattered mirror, each shard reflecting a distorted version of something that once was real, but now exists only inside a dying brain. Springfield is Homer's final refuge of consciousness, a fragile shelter on the verge of crumbling at any moment. The most absurd episodes as evidence. If you still doubt the coma theory, it might be because you've grown too used to the absurd. But take a closer look. Homer has been an astronaut. Yes, he literally left Earth, piloted a NASA rocket, and came back like it was just another day. In one episode, he meets God. In another, he turns into a 3D character. He's fought in the military, become a secret agent, an inventor, an artist, a race car driver, a tech mogul. He's even transformed into a superhero. And it's not just him. The entire world of The Simpsons has collapsed into delirium. Mr. Burns should have died decades ago, but somehow he's still alive, looking like he's 120 years old. told. There are episodes where Lisa sees the future, others where Bart meets adult versions of himself. Even the once separate treehouse of horror episodes, meant to exist outside the show's canon, now bleed into the main narrative. There's even a crossover with Family Guy, merging realities, animation styles, and universes as if any of it made sense. But none of it is coherent. None of it is sustainable. Within the framework of this theory, only one explanation makes sense. All of it, every bizarre plot, every impossible twist, every surreal event is a fantasy, a dream fabricated by Homer's mind to justify his continued existence, to avoid the end, because deep down, Homer knows he's losing control, subliminal messages and self-reference. And then come the whispers, the hidden messages, the clues that feel like they're coming from somewhere else. In several episodes from the more recent seasons, strange lines suddenly appear out of nowhere. Characters say things like, "None of this is real. This has happened before. We're trapped here." Or even, "You have to wake up." Dropped into the middle of the show's chaotic comedy, these lines might sound like jokes. But what if they're not? What if they're cries for help, echoes from Homer's own mind, trying to warn him that everything around him is fake, that he needs to escape, to wake up, to accept the end?
You were wrong, dead wrong.
Do you have to talk like that?
No, not really.
Some fans believe that the writers themselves, aware of the show's decline and narrative chose, began playing with the Coma theory. They started dropping breadcrumbs, leaving subtle hints. There are opening sequences where Homer falls into infinite voids, dissolves into pieces, or gets trapped in endless visual loops. Some episodes end abruptly with eerie silence, as if something's missing, as if the mind blinked out for a second.
In all my years, this is a love like I have never felt. Well, all marriages have their ups and downs.
It's like watching a television set connected to someone's brain, a brain that's slowly losing its signal. And once you start noticing these details, you can't unsee them. Homer trapped in time, the limbo of consciousness. Every day in Springfield is exactly the same. Time moves, but it goes nowhere. Homer wakes up, goes to work, shouts "Dough!", comes home, goes to bed, and the next day, it starts all over again. Sometimes he tries to change. He takes a class, saves the town, apologizes to Marge, promises to be a better father, but it all resets. By the next episode, he's back to being the same reckless idiot. Nothing evolves, nothing sticks. It's as if he's trapped in an endless loop of trial and error, and within the Coma theory, this loop has a name: cognitive limbo. It's a phenomenon in which the brain replays daily routines over and over, desperately trying to preserve a sense of identity while the body remains unresponsive. Homer's mind may be trapped in this limbo, trying to fix the past, rewrite his mistakes, relive better moments, but never actually moving forward. It's like an invisible prison, a simulation of life, where consciousness hovers on the edge of collapse. Each episode can be seen as the brain making another attempt to create meaning, but there is no meaning anymore. Only repetition, only forgetting, only the slow agony of a mind that may never wake up.
Oh, homie, you're awake.
What happened?
Marge, Bart, and Lisa. Fragments of memory. If Homer is in a coma, then who are Marge, Bart, and Lisa? Are they just mental projections, or something more? According to this theory, they aren't complete people. They're emotional fragments, echoes of Homer's past, trapped in an endless loop, repeating themselves over and over. Pieces of a life he refuses to let go. Marge represents love. She's the anchor, the constant, the one figure who, even in the most chaotic episodes, always tries to keep the family together. In Homer's mind, Marge is what keeps him alive. She's the reason he keeps dreaming. Bart is regret. Homer was always an absent father, impulsive, sometimes violent. In this imagined world, Bart becomes untouchable, wild, unbreakable.
Testing. Testing. Testing.
Maybe it's Homer's way of compensating for everything he failed to teach his son. Maybe Bart is his guilt, made permanent.
No. Your room is full of toys. You're going to the, garage.
You're the boss.
Lisa is hope. She symbolizes everything Homer wishes he could understand. reason, sensitivity, clarity. She's the proof that somewhere, deep inside that collapsing mind, there's still a flicker of light. But even she repeats the same speeches, faces the same dilemmas, and never grows. And Maggie, the baby who never speaks, the child who never ages. She's a painful symbol of time frozen, a life interrupted, an innocence suspended forever. These four, his wife and his children, are all that's left of Homer's identity. They're not real, they're condensed emotions, and that's why he can't let them grow, because if they age, he loses control. He loses himself. Alternate ending. What if Homer woke up? Now imagine just for a moment that the show actually decided to end. Really end. Imagine a final episode. No jokes, no absurdity, just a hospital room. Homer opens his eyes, blinded by the harsh light around his bed. Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, all older now. Bart is 30, Lisa is a grown woman. Maggie speaks, and Homer realizes everything he lived was just a dream. He's lost decades of his life. His children grew up without him. The pain would be unbearable, because it wouldn't just be a sad ending, it would be the most human ending possible. Waking up from a coma isn't a happy ending, it's a trauma. And maybe that's why Homer still hasn't woken up. Maybe, deep down, his brain knows that if he comes back, he'll have to face everything he missed. And so, he chooses to stay, trapped in his imagined Springfield, where no one ages, where he's always forgiven, where everything resets. Because there, the pain can't reach him. Is the theory real? In the end, this theory might seem ridiculous, or it might be the most brilliant explanation for the show's collapse in logic. The truth is, no one really knows if Homer is actually in a coma. It could all be a coincidence. It could be just a metaphor, or it might be the answer to why the Simpsons were never the same again. Maybe it's just an inside joke from the writers, or maybe it's a mirror of what happens when the human mind refuses to accept the end. But one thing is certain, you'll never watch The Simpsons the same way again. And now the question is yours. What if it's all true? What if Springfield is nothing more than the mind of one man trapped in a dream with no end? If this video made you think, gave you chills, or showed you The Simpsons in a whole new light, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications. Here, we keep digging deep into the weirdest, darkest, and most disturbing theories in the world of The Simpsons. Until next time, or until the next delusion in Springfield.